Good morning. You're listening to the BLAINESWORLD Show, heard here every Wednesday at 9 a.m. on WPVM LP in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 on your dial. This is the BLAINESWORLD Show, and you can also watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. And Scott, you can wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world if you're watching. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, in my Zoom studio in downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce one of my favorite folks in Asheville, and he is Scott Burnett, who's the fire chief in the city of Asheville. And I should mention that Chief Burnett began his career as a firefighter for the city of Asheville in 1995. That's right. Chief Burnett has an associate degree in fire protection technology from Gaston College, a bachelor's degree in fire safety engineering technology from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and a master's degree in executive fire services leadership from Grand Canyon University. Chief Burnett worked his way through the ranks and was promoted to fire chief in November 2009. The question, Chief, I ask typically is, so you grew up in Asheville, right, the Asheville area?
Yes, sir. I'm a native from Western North Carolina.
Okay. And when you were a kid growing up, did you always know you wanted to be a firefighter?
I did not. My home community of Mills River is where I began my interest in firefighting, and that was when I was 16 years old. They have a program called a junior firefighter program, and I had a good friend that was part of that program, and he was able to talk me into joining the ranks there. And so that's where my firefighting interest began.
And so now do all communities have those junior firefighter programs?
No, sir. Only a handful of communities. Typically, they are associated with the departments that are volunteer.
And so in terms of the communities of volunteers, even in the Asheville area, so we're blessed to have the Asheville Fire Department in Asheville. Then explain it too. There's a Buncombe County Fire Department, or what's it, Buncombe County?
So there are 18 other fire departments within Buncombe County. There's two other municipal fire departments, Weaverville and Black Mountain, and the other 16 fire departments are independent fire departments that cover their communities.
Now those folks, all the independent ones, they get paid? They're paid professionals?
They all do. So all firefighters are professionals. Those firefighters are what we call combination departments. So they have firefighters that it's their career. They come into work just like the firefighters here in Asheville, and they work 24-hour shifts. In addition to that, most of those departments also have volunteers.
And so when you grew up, and they still have the same situation, Mills River, what was the situation there?
It was an all-volunteer department. They now have some career firefighters, but they're still a combination department with volunteers and career firefighters.
Are there any all-volunteer fire departments?
There are. It's becoming less of what we had even 20 years ago. Volunteering becomes increasingly difficult in the fire service. There's a lot of demands on firefighters related to training, and it's very difficult to do that as a volunteer. I certainly commend those firefighters who are able to volunteer their time as firefighters and work a full-time job somewhere else.
And it also has to be, they have to be available 24/7 too, you know.
Yes, sir.
You were mentioning too, just to explain that a little as well, that firefighters don't have a typical 9-to-5 job. Is that correct? I guess all your life.
Yeah, that is very correct.
So what is it? It's you mentioned 24-hour shifts. How does that work?
Yeah, so firefighters work an average of 56 hours a week. And so, typically most folks are on a 40-hour week, and that's their normal work week. Typically, folks are home every night. They're off every weekend. Unfortunately, that's not true for firefighters. Firefighters work 10 24-hour shifts a month. And so that's the entire time from 7 in the morning until 7 the next morning that they're living at the firehouse. They're away from their families and they're working. And so typically the schedule is a 24-hour shift that you're working. And then you get a break for 24 hours. a lot of firefighters work overtime, and so they're still here working that additional shift on their scheduled day that they're scheduled to have a break. Then they're scheduled to come back on their second shift, and then they have a 2-day break. Then their third shift, they come back, they get a 1-day break again. Then their fourth shift, they work, and then they get a 4-day break. But as I said, most firefighters are either working overtime or working a part-time job. So even though they're not scheduled to be at the fire department, they're typically busy working.
That must be tough in terms of getting sleep or getting used to sleep. Is that something I guess you adjust to somehow?
Unfortunately, it's not something the human body ever truly adjusts to. Firefighters certainly get conditioned to sleep deprivation, but the health effects and the stress that sleep deprivation cause are a real problem for our industry.
Because then I guess it's even worse too when you're involved in fighting a fire or a major fire, because then you have to go beyond, I guess, you don't just leave, I guess, in the middle of a fire and say your time's up. You have to go oftentimes long beyond your anticipated shift.
Yeah, that's very true. We our firefighters are what we call held over often because of emergencies that are occurring.
And the incredible thing you were telling me off the air is, all things considered, you have a pretty good retention rate in terms of the firefighters with Asheville. I mean, you've had a bunch of people stay up for a while.
Yeah, we do. Anytime that we have even one firefighter that resigns to go to another opportunity, it's a tremendous loss for our department. But the fire service in general does have a really good retention rate, and it's a testament to who our firefighters are and their willingness to serve and their focus on doing good things for our community.
And talk about the Asheville Fire Department then. So I know where you're located, you're in the major location, the primary location downtown. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Our administrative offices are at Fire Station 1, which is downtown, and this is one of 12 current firehouses.
Okay. And so at each firehouse, like in number one, how many firefighters do you have working out of there?
So the most work at this firehouse. So we have 3 companies that operate out of this firehouse. We also have our community risk reduction folks, our fire inspectors, our educators, our fire investigators. Those folks that work out of this building, as well as our support personnel. So most of our employees work out of this Station 1. We have one station that only has 2 firefighters assigned at any given time, and so anywhere in between. But typically our firehouses have 1 or 2 fire companies, which is an engine and a ladder truck, and each company has 4 firefighters assigned. So 4 to 8 firefighters that are always on duty at most of our firehouses.
Now, do firefighters, is this just a thing in the movies, or do they actually still slide down poles? Is that still out there?
Yeah, we absolutely do. We have poles here at Fire Station 1. Currently, it's our only firehouse that is multi-story. And so, but when we have the multi-story firehouses, the turnout time is what we call it, and that's the time it takes from when the 911 call is received until the time we can get the truck out the door. In our business, seconds are so critical to whether or not someone lives or die, whether or not their home is confined to just a room that's on fire or they lose their entire home. And so getting out the door is so important. And so that's why we use those fire poles, because it takes a long time to go down steps compared to they can slide down the pole very quickly.
What about, too, the people, it's incredible, Scott, complain about the noise of the fire department, especially if you're downtown. But I don't know about you, I'm grateful every time. It's a mixed feeling. I wish I didn't hear the noise at all. But explain that whole thing, what you're trying to do with getting people out to a fire.
Sure. Yeah, we certainly are a noisy group, but as you alluded to, it's for a very good reason. So every 60 seconds that pass in an emergency, the chances of a good outcome decrease by 10%. And so that means someone who is in cardiac arrest, it's every minute that goes by, their chances of survival go down by 10%. So time is so important to us. And as we're traveling to an emergency where someone is dying, we need to get there very quickly. And so what that siren does is it asks the public, whether they're in a car, whether they're on a bicycle, or whether they're walking across an intersection, that siren asks them to give us the right of way, because it is so important that we get there so quickly. And for that reason, it has to be loud. And in today's built environment, in today's environment where vehicles are sound resistant, where radios are on, or people walking have their earbuds in listening to music, we unfortunately have to be loud so that we can get their attention, so that they can give us that right of way and not walk across that intersection, or pull over if they're in a vehicle, because that time is so important.
Do people, for the most part, adhere to the sirens and pay attention to them?
Yeah, they sure do. We certainly get folks that aren't paying attention. Sometimes folks just aren't sure how to react, and rather than moving out of the way, they unintentionally move in the way. And so, but for the most part, people absolutely respect that request to give us the right of way.
Now, you mentioned something, Chief, that a lot of people probably aren't even aware of. So obviously people expect the fire department to respond to fires and to take care of fires. But talk a little bit about what you just said about you also come in health emergencies, and how does that tie in?
We sure do. In fact, half of the emergencies that we respond to are exactly that. And that is someone who is suffering a medical emergency or an injury, and that's half of our responses. We have all of our firefighters that are trained as emergency medical technicians. Many of our firefighters are trained as advanced emergency medical technicians, which means they start IVs, they give medications. We're able to arrive on scene when someone is suffering a life-threatening emergency and begin to stabilize those folks and begin to resuscitate them in the most serious types of emergencies prior to the ambulance from Buncombe County or one of the transport agencies before they can arrive on scene. And so it truly is a very effective life-saving service that the fire department offers.
And talk a little bit about that then, Chief, if you would, with respect to what people should do. In other words, obviously, if there's a fire, what do you do? Do you call 911? What should you do in an emergency situation?
If your home is on fire, or even if you believe that it's on fire, leave. That is the most important thing. Alert everyone else in the building as you are leaving that there is a fire and that they need to also leave. Do not go back in. Don't wait. Don't try to collect personal belongings. Those can be replaced. As painful as it may be to lose things that are near and dear to you, your possessions are just that. They're possessions that aren't as valuable as your life. That cell phone can't be used if you're not living. So don't go back and get that cell phone. Leave. That is the most important thing. Call 911. If it's your cell phone that you left in there, don't go back and get it. Call 911 from the immediate location that you can as quickly as possible, whether it be a neighbor's house or a bystander. But leave and then call 911 and stay out of the building. Do not go back in.
Okay, so even a health emergency, though, same thing too. You have a health emergency, just call 911?
Absolutely. If you are suffering which you think may be a life-threatening emergency, absolutely call 911. If it's not a life-threatening emergency, call your physician, call any of the healthcare, anything that's available to you. But if you believe it's a life-threatening situation, always call 911.
And so 911 then hooks into the fire department? Is that how it works?
That is exactly how it works. And so Buncombe County government operates our public safety answering point, is what we call it. And all of the 911 calls in Buncombe County go into that public safety answering point. They have trained telecommunicators 24/7. They answer your call very quickly. They find out what the nature of your emergency is, and they dispatch the appropriate agencies.
Okay. And your point is a good one. We'll talk a little bit about that too, with respect to if you think it's a problem, better to call rather than to not call.
Most definitely.
But what about, Scott, talk a little bit about, though, then for the homeowner, and we were talking about this off the air as well. Um, what should I be doing just in terms of protecting my home or taking care of my home with respect to smoke alarms, and not only smoke alarms, but also, uh, things that can put out fires? What should I be doing at home?
First and foremost, go to Asheville, NC/fire. AshevilleNC.gov/fire. We have lots of resources to guide you for your particular type of dwelling. You speak about your home. What should you do in different types of places that people live? As it relates to smoke detectors, that is the single most effective thing that we all can do to protect ourselves and protect our families. We have thousands of people in our country every year that die in their homes from fires, and those deaths are very preventable by having a functioning smoke detector. And you should have a smoke detector in every level of your home. If your home has 2 levels, then you need to have at least one smoke detector in each level. You also need to have a smoke detector in every sleeping area. So if you have multiple bedrooms in your home, make sure that you have a smoke detector in every sleeping area. What the smoke detector does is it alerts people that there is a fire. In most cases, if people are awake, they will know that there's a fire and they will be able to escape safely before they're at risk. When people are asleep or if they're impaired, then that is when that smoke detector really has the ability to save lives by notifying someone early so that they are able to get out of their home before it becomes life-threatening.
How often should you check them?
So you should check every single month at minimum. You should check your smoke detector. All smoke detectors have a test button. Very simple, and there's no reason to put a lighter or any to
Right.
try to test it that way. There's a button that you can test, and you should push that button, and you should hear it alarm. If it doesn't alarm, then there's some type of a problem. The most common is a battery issue, and so if you have questions or need assistance with those smoke alarms, call us on our business line at 828-259-5636, or go to asheville.nc.gov/fire, and there's ways you can email us or you can send us a message in order to get some help with your smoke detectors.
Well, another service you folks offer, and a lot of people don't know about it, but you were telling me that you'll even come out to look at a home to assess how their home is protected.
And most definitely, if folks need assistance with not just whether or not their home is fire safe, but if their home is injury safe as well, we want to help folks with that. We take great joy in the calls we didn't go to, and we never really know what a difference we make by the calls that we didn't go to. But it is much better for our community to not have that injury or not have that fire, rather than us respond to that injury. Asheville firefighters are the best in the world, and if you have an injury or if you have a fire, they're going to get there. They're going to get there quick. They're going to be properly trained. They're going to be properly equipped, and they're going to mitigate your emergency and have the best outcome. But that still is not as effective as preventing that injury or that fire to begin with.
How about fire drills? We'll talk about it in the context of two things. One, in terms of homes. Should people have sample fire drills?
Most definitely. And what we like to term them is exit drills, because that is the main important thing that needs to happen, is to exit. And particularly with our younger folks and folks who have limited mobility, those exit drills really become important. So children and also folks whose mobility is may become an issue if they need to get out of that building or that home quickly. And so we recommend that every month when you're checking your smoke detectors, also do an exit drill. And what that exit drill should entail is everyone there knowing 2 different ways to get out of that home or out of that building, and practicing it by moving low, because heat rises, smoke rises. And so your best chance of survival is to move towards that exit as low as possible. We suggest you crawling. And so that way the bad stuff is above your head and you can still breathe the remaining fresh air that's in that building as you exit. So that exit drill should be practiced once a month by all members of that family, or all members of those who are living in that dwelling. And they need to practice going out 2 different locations. And then once they're out, they need to have a meeting location. That's really important. That meeting location needs to be established that is away from where the firefighters probably will be arriving on scene and starting to get to work. And very importantly, everyone in that home needs to have a meeting location so that you can have accountability, so that as soon as the fire department arrives and they ask, is there anyone in that home, you'll know immediately if there is or there is not.
How come you don't see fire, or you call them exit drills, I'm sorry. How come you don't see them anymore when you used to as a kid in schools? I don't know if the schools still have them, but you used to see them regularly in schools. But even, Chief, you'd think not only in schools, in businesses or movie theaters or whatever, you don't see them like it seemed they used to be. Is that true?
I think you're right. I think the schools definitely do. And the fire code not requiring the same number of drills that schools have probably is the reason that you don't see that same number of times that they occur. Certainly with children, the importance of those drills being more frequently is there, rather than adults in the business, all the different trades and occupations that people have. Typically, those adults are able to get out of a bad situation better than children could.
Yeah, how about something else too that we have in our house, but I'd be curious your reaction in terms of other houses with people with pets, and I'll even ask you this, if the Asheville Fire Department offers this. We have a little sticker on the front of our house, saying we have a cat where the cat hangs. Do you have them, or are they available, or what's your feeling about using them?
So what we do when we arrive on scene of a fire, we search the entire home independent of any indication. When the occupants of the home or the building are there, we get as much information as we can from them, and that's what's most valuable, as far as there's a pet in this home, or worst case scenario, there's a person that's still in there. These are the likely places that they might be. Independent of that information, we're going to search that entire home, and we've got a quick, systematic way of doing that, to where, independent of a sticker, we're going to search the entire home. One problem with having stickers on windows is when pets change. When unfortunately a pet is no longer a living member of the family, and new pets arrive or people move, those stickers last forever. And so because of that, we don't use that as our primary means of getting information as to whether or not there's pets inside. We search that entire structure regardless, so that we can make sure that no person or pet is left behind.
So I know, just your point is well taken. When we moved here, we had changed the sticker. We used to have an old, outdated sticker, but then now we updated it, because, like I said, pets do change, some pass. But the problem is, our pets, as many pets, tend to hide. So you never find it, and so it's just it's one thing if we're there, but if we're not there, then it's a whole different situation. Also, I asked you something off the air, and I loved your response. Cats, in particular, I guess sometimes get out, and sometimes they go up in trees. Personally, have you ever had to rescue a cat?
Yes, sir.
Have you really?
I have.
You climbed up in the tree to get it?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah,
And what was the advice you talk about that in terms of what should folks do?
yeah. So understanding how important a pet is to people, important to their families. Um, Anytime that someone's animal is in distress and they need help, we want to be there to help them. And so we do get calls on occasion from folks that are significantly distressed that tell us, hey, there's my cat is high up in a tree, or my dog is stuck in a culvert, or there's lots of times where we go and we rescue animals. We always will assist in those cases. Often when we arrive, and these aren't things that we have the lights and the sirens or nothing like that.
Right.
We know that the animal is safe for a time period, and so we can be very safe in getting there. But once we get there, typically what we find is that the cat in that example is too high up in a tree that we can help, because or too far out on a limb that putting a firefighter up there would not be effective or safe. And so we can talk through with that pet owner in those cases, and let them know, so hey, we see this a lot. We see this a lot, and often the reason that a cat goes high up in a tree is something spooked that cat, something scared that cat. And if we remove the excitement from this tree, then often the cat will come down. It may be a few hours, it may be a day, but we would typically in that case recommend put some food at the bottom of the tree, go back into the house, or go back to your regular activities, and typically the cat will go down. And then what we always want to do is follow through on that. And so I talked about our firefighters working 24-hour shifts. And so that next day before our firefighters leave, calling that person, say, hey, I just want to check on your cat, check on you. And in most cases, they happily report that the cat safely came down.
Very sweet. Two final questions. One, I'll ask you to give a mention of one of my best experiences I've ever had at Asheville, but pre-COVID, you have, and hopefully you'll have it again, you have it, was it Asheville Citizens Firefighters, what do they call it?
Citizens Fire Academy.
With the best. Just a Reader's Digest version of what that is.
So that is an orientation for our community to learn what your fire department does, and also opportunities for how our community can support our fire department. And so it's an 8-week program where every single week we invite community members in, and every week they get fed a nice meal, and also they get to learn about what their fire department does, and they get to do some really cool things. They get to learn how to cut up cars, and get to ride in fire trucks, and get to participate in a lot of the fun things that firefighters do.
And a strong recommendation is one of the best experiences I've ever had in Asheville. So if you get a chance to do that, take it. And in our remaining minute here, Scott, talk a little bit about if somebody wants to become an Asheville firefighter, what do they do?
Go to ashevillennc.gov/fire. There's information there on employment opportunities. Our next opportunity is going to be in January, and we typically will hire once a year. We typically will hire somewhere around 20-25 firefighters. We have an academy that you get paid to go through. You're being trained to be a firefighter for 6 months, and you get to make a full-time salary as you're learning to be a firefighter. So you don't need previous experience. ashevillennc.gov/fire.
And so, in conclusion, if folks need to reach the Asheville Fire Department, mention the two ways again. So, an emergency, they do what?
911.
And
non-emergency, you can go to ashevillennc.gov/fire or 828-259-5636.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chief Burnett, for being my guest this first half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show, and just thank you for all the good work and the firefighters do in Asheville. You really do a tremendous job. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay. Speak to you soon. Okay. And as Chief works his way out of the studio, we'll see if we can get our next guest in. And there she is. Emily, I'll be with you in 1 second. But first of all, let me just mention that WPVM's mission is to foster community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, businesses, community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio and also on Facebook Live. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. They can do so by going to the website, wpvmfm.org, and looking at the donate option in the upper right-hand side. It's next my pleasure to introduce a long-time friend, Emily Shaules. And welcome aboard, Emily.
Hi. Good to be here, Blaine.
Okay, and you can wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world.
Hi.
And we should mention that I knew Emily when she lived in Asheville, but right now you're in downtown
Encinitas, California.
Okay, but thank you for being with us. And I should mention that, as you'll see, Emily's this amazing just you name it. She's Emily, but I love it. She's a former attorney, actress, and energy bar founder. She is now a transformational coach who works primarily with women who are suffering from invisible illness, whether physical or mental. She herself has lived with chronic pain for many years and feels called to share what she has worked for to allow her to follow her dreams and create the life she always wanted. Great idea. Emily, the question I ask is, you grew up, what was it, in Chicago?
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, I'm sorry. Close enough.
Bunch of places, but then we landed in Milwaukee.
Okay, Milwaukee. And when you were in Milwaukee, did you always know you wanted to be, we'll even say a transformational coach? Was that your goal as a little girl?
I had no idea what that meant. No, coaching was like my softball coach. I did not know at that point what that was.
Well, how do you then, we'll kind of briefly trace your background because it's so fascinating to me. You've done a couple of different things in your life.
I have.
And at one time you were a lawyer, is that correct?
Yes. That's how I started my career. I was a labor and employment lawyer in downtown Chicago. So
okay, and you did that for a bunch of years, is that correct?
Almost 10, yeah. On and off. I was really struggling with my illnesses then, and so my legal career was not the shining star that I had always hoped it would be.
Because one of the things I've admired about you is in any context that I've seen you do just this fantastic job, So I didn't know you as a lawyer, but I guess I met you when you were in Asheville.
Yes.
And you were, was that before or during when you were becoming an aspiring actor? Is that correct?
Exactly.
And so what got you into wanting to become an actor?
Well, when I moved down to Asheville, I knew I needed to change. My health had kind of woken me up to the fact that my life as it is was not what I wanted. And so, after the first couple of years of just kind of bouncing around and doing a couple jobs just to pay rent, I had to really sit myself down. And the question I asked myself is, what will you regret on your deathbed if you do not try? And what came to me was acting. I had always wanted to try it and thought I could do well at it, but just never thought I was that type of person. And so just never tried it. And so, of course, then I had just moved from Chicago and this great acting city. And I thought, well, what am I going to do in Asheville? And literally within a week, they opened up an acting school where I met the man who became my teacher, my agent, my second father, like all the things. So.
And we can give him a shout out. You want to mention him?
John Mennick of the Screen Artist Co-op.
Okay, and
does Screen Artist Talent.
Just does such a fantastic job with that.
Yeah. And
just, I think I've told you this off the air, but I had the pleasure of getting to see you in a couple of things, and I loved it, and I haven't told you this, Emily, but sometimes Cynthia and I will be watching something, and we say, that would have been a good role for Emily, and then my favorite role, I saw you in a couple of plays and whatnot, then I saw you, it was so exciting, I saw you in the one TV thing, it was the whole hour show, and you were the
Your
the bad...
Worst Nightmare.
What was it?
That was the name of the show, Your Worst Nightmare.
And you were the worst nightmare?
I was.
Yeah, was that typecasting or that was against
Not
time?
at all. I had to stretch for that role. Yeah.
But I love that. You were so good in it. And, I'm telling you, every time we see something, Emily could handle that role. And, I thought you were really good. But then you got, I don't know if you lost the acting bug, but then all of a sudden you became this entrepreneur. And talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, it wasn't that I lost the acting bug. It was that I really, it was two things. One, I really got into acting as a profession and realized how incredibly challenging physically it is. It's not, going on and just doing a couple takes. Like, you're on set 14 hours a day. I mean, it's grueling, plus driving back and forth, doing callbacks, all of this. And for someone with invisible illness, it was challenging to keep up with that. And then the second thing was, I had this idea for an energy bar, and I was letting it percolate, and I realized I was really liking the person I was becoming. And I didn't really want to pretend to be other people anymore. I wanted to say the words that were in my head, not what someone had written out for me. And I live my life by trying to be as high vibrational and positive as I can. And so a lot of the shows that I was getting auditions for did not fall into that category, let's just say, hence your worst nightmare. So I really wanted to put the limited energy that I had into something that I was truly proud of, and what I really wanted. I wanted to better the world. And so I just, when it became a choice between the two, because you had to choose, I felt I had to choose. I felt more aligned with the energy bar.
And I just love, too, the whole concept of the energy bar. And then we'll talk about the title, because you had the world's greatest title for that, and explain that.
They were called shift bars, SHIFT. And I did that on purpose. One, I've obviously wanted people, they were all organic and they only had 1 gram of sugar. So I wanted to shift people away from sugar. I also wanted to shift people into, more joyful state, a more aligned state. But also I wanted to have the play on words to be able to say things like eat my shift and, shift happens. And I have bumper stickers that I still have one on my car that says shift happens. Like, it was fun.
So that was quite an experience for you, too.
My God.
I mean, I was honored to have been part of the prototype testing,
Yes, I remember that in my kitchen.
And you actually, now, what's happened with shift bars? Are they still around, or?
No, we closed it during the pandemic.
Okay.
I had moved out to California to launch shift bars. My investors were out here. Jason Mraz was one of our investors. All of our production was out here. So I was kind of the lone person out east. So I came out here to launch the company, and we did a beta launch. And unfortunately, our co-packer kind of messed up the formula and didn't really take responsibility for it. And so our entire first batch did not meet the standards that I wanted for a first impression. And so I donated those bars to an inner city grocery store because they were definitely still edible, but it was just, I have incredibly high standards, especially for our debut. And so I thought, oh my gosh, we have to go back to the drawing board to get more investors. And at the time, this perfect storm happened. I lost my main employee. My mother passed away. Like, all of these things were just like bam, bam, bam. And when I finally got back out here and started to work and started to really start talking to investors, that's when the pandemic hit and everyone went into hiding. And it was just after probably about 6 months, I knew I had to call it, which was incredibly painful, incredibly difficult to do, but in hindsight was obviously the best thing for many reasons. So
what's kind of cool about the story, though, is that, so I've been following it kind of, somewhat through Facebook and through some other means. Then, like you said, the pandemic hit, but it was almost like a perfect time, because it sort of then gave the opportunity to then get into this coaching thing.
Exactly.
And it was so cool, because all of a sudden, I hadn't heard from you for a while. Then all of a sudden I see you doing these marvelous, coaching programs and things. And I just think you'd be phenomenal in that as well. Explain what happened then to get that part of your business
Sure.
off the ground.
Well, like I said, I mean, shift bars, letting that go was incredibly hard. I had worked on that project for almost 6 years. I had investors. I mean, a lot of pressure for success. I really wanted to make it work for several reasons. And I really, again, had to take a long look at myself and what I was able to do. And like I had when I moved to Asheville, and really ask, like, what is it that I want in my life? Not sometime, X years down the road when I fill in the blank.
When you grow up.
Body. Yeah, when I grow up, when I have millions of dollars, any of these things. Right now, what can I do? What do I want to do? And I went through a depression during the pandemic. I was by myself for a lot of it, not working, and I was, I got depressed, as so many of us did. And one day, a friend of mine called me and she said, Emily, I really have this issue I want to talk through. And a friend of mine suggested I call a therapist. And honestly, your name came to mind first. Would you mind talking with me, coaching me through this? You always have such great advice and I trust you. And I just thought, my God, yes, thank you for giving me something to do and get out of my own head. And we had this beautiful session. She had several breakthroughs, cried multiple times. And I got off the phone just feeling so like in my purpose, just so good. And the next day, I'm not kidding you, I get an email from my mentor in Asheville who trained me as a shamanic priestess. Her name is Raven Sinclair. She's phenomenal. And she said, hey, I'm starting a coaching business. I would like for you to be one of my lead coaches. If I train you, would you be willing to do that? And I thought, absolutely, because it ticked off all of the boxes that I had been thinking of like something I can do from home, something I can do that I truly believe in, something I can do that helps people, something that I can do not full-time hours, because I am not able to do that right now physically. And looking back, I realized I was actually coaching or wanting to coach in all of my past careers.
Well, I'll give you a compliment, and we won't go into specifics, but you also helped Cynthia, my beautiful bride, in another life. And yep. I would definitely say that was a coaching situation.
Absolutely.
And she was so impressed by you, so even though you weren't doing that officially full time, you were doing it and you were very good at it, so that was certainly an indication, I guess, to me and probably to you too, that you have kind of a gift for this, and are you finding that's the case?
Absolutely. And it's so funny with our gifts, a lot of times we don't see them. We don't even recognize them as gifts because they come so naturally to us. We're like, oh yeah, whatever, anyone can do that. That's easy. And it's like, no, not everyone can do that. That's your gift. And so I got more and more confirmation of that this is actually something I'm good at. And there's a astrological somewhat kind of thing called human design, where there are different types of people. And when I looked mine up, I'm what they call a projector in that system. And it's literally someone who sees into others and is able to give them insight that helps them and guide them. And I mean, on like coach, therapist, that's like the number one careers listed for those types of people. And it also, interestingly enough, says these people should not work full time. They have limited energy, don't waste it, they'll burn out. And so it was like, oh, okay, why don't I try going with this? And once I've stepped onto this path, then things have started to really become easier and more exciting.
And talk about the training you did receive. So you went with this one woman, she was training you.
Yes.
And then now you took that training and did what with it? Explain the process.
Well, we trained all last year and into this year. And it was a group of us that went in. And so afterwards, we were fully certified. And then she had a coaching collective. It's called Masterpath Coaching. You can go to masterpathcoaching.com to check that out. And there were a group of us offering coaching services. And she had created this in anticipation of her book being published. She has a book at the publishers, like raring to go. She said, once, the book is published and I'm doing all of these things, that'll be marketing for the coaching. Well, her book got postponed. And so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I don't have time for, I have to support myself. And so I decided to branch out on my own and still be a part of the collective. I did it with her blessing. But that's when I stepped in and created my own programs that I could share.
And talk a little bit about, you mentioned the book, and that's something else I had the pleasure of seeing you. You didn't write the whole book, but talk a little bit about, you're part of a kind of a well-known book, and talk a little bit about that, plus you're speaking about that as well.
Oh, that was such a highlight. So I was fortunate enough to have my essay chosen to be included in Eat, Pray, Love Made Me Do It, which was the 10-year anthology of Elizabeth Gilbert's smash success, Eat, Pray, Love. So it was obviously essays about how that had impacted various readers. And I just saw a call for it in the email. I'm on her emailing list. And years ago, they sent an email saying, did this impact you? Let us know. And so I literally just sat down and wrote out, I don't remember how many words you were allowed, essay, sent it in, and was like, done. And that's it. And then I actually got chosen. They had I think they got 4,000 entries, and they picked 40, something like that. So it was such an honor to be included. And the biggest thing was I got to have a book signing and reading, and we did it at Masterpath downtown.
It was so much fun.
Best bookstore ever. Love that place. Miss it. And it was a dream come true. I've always wanted to be an author, a published author. I've always seen myself signing books, so to have that happen sooner rather than later, and so easily. And that's what I teach my clients is once you get into this flow where you're flowing, magical stuff like that happens naturally. Like and it happens effortlessly. Like I literally just opened up, saw the email, wrote the thing, done, and boom, it happened. So
we'll talk about that then, Emily. Does this mean we're going to also see in your spare time now, are you writing your first book too, your first full book?
Not yet. My plan is I want to really dive into the coaching programs that I've created for the next year or so and really soak up all of the wisdom that we create in there and see what clients respond best to, all of these things, and then the book will follow that.
So I'm just telling, your story is such an amazing story, even unto itself, or even now. I'd love to see the first book, but also
it's definitely coming.
But one of the gifts you have too, and I had the pleasure of hearing that presentation at Malaprops, is you're such a gifted speaker, and again, it's funny how it all fits together, maybe in part because of your acting training, that and your legal training, but you also, another thing you do in your spare time, you speak,
yes.
And I assume you enjoy speaking?
I love speaking. I did a TEDx talk in Asheville when they brought it back in, I think, 2016, I want to say, or 2015. And that was so much fun. Speaking for me has always been pretty natural. I'm not afraid of public speaking. I get it from my dad. He's the life of every party. So in that essence, I'm very lucky. But the acting training definitely helped. The legal training helped. I mean, we learn how to talk in front of a jury, but really I find speaking is really just about connecting. And the more I focus on how can I connect with the people that I'm speaking to and really impact them, then the less I'm focusing on myself and the less nervous I am. And then it becomes this fun, basically like channeled experience where I just get inspired a lot of times if I'm not going on a script, because I'm really connected and present, and I can feel what will kind of have the most impact for people. So speaking for me is just a joy, and I love to do it more and more.
And let's use that kind of to segue into what you're doing now. And so, first of all, the name of your business is what?
Emily Shaules Enterprises. I kept it really simple.
Okay. And I know you mentioned in the introduction, you've told me you work with people, oftentimes more so with women, I guess that's the primary thrust, who have invisible illnesses. And if you would describe what you mean by invisible illnesses.
Sure. Invisible illness is anyone who has any chronic physical or mental pain. And the shorthand I use for it is anyone who has heard the phrase, "Oh, but you look normal." Like if you've heard that in your life, then yeah, you probably have an invisible illness.
I guess you've heard that a couple of times in your life, have you?
Many, many times. And I know it comes out of the, love and the, someone's positive reaction to me. But there are times when you hear that you just want to shut them up.
We'll talk about that then. So somebody is suffering from pain, be it depression, be it physical pain, whatever, but you just don't see it. How can they deal with that? How do you help them deal with it?
Oof. Really, it's a journey. I always say transformation is a process. It's not a destination. It is, or not an event. It's a process. I work with people, usually the new group program that I just created and we just launched. I'm very excited about it. It's called the Canary Club.
I love that too. By the way, how did you get the name Canary Club?
Because I feel like those of us with invisible illness, we are the canaries in the coal mine. So the proverbial canaries in the coal mine who, the miners would take down. And if the bird died, you knew to get out of the mine. We're the ones who are sounding the alarm that how our society is set up, how people are trying to live in their day-to-day lives is not healthy. It's not sustainable. Trying to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, focused only on how much money can I make, what stuff can I buy, wrecking the planet, doing all these things. It's not healthy. And so those of us who were born in maybe a little more sensitive bodies, we can't handle it. And so it's not that those of us, the other people who are out there who are healthy and stuff can handle all that well. They just might have stronger systems, but it's still affecting them. And so just to really focus on that our sensitivities are our superpowers, to really take care of yourself first and really take care of ourselves first. I mean, design your life around what your body can actually do instead of trying to push it into what society is trying to demand you do. Taking that power back is a really big step in the work that I do.
So as you help women in this, again, I love the title, the Canary Club. This is a group endeavor. Is that how you set it up?
It's a group coaching.
Explain what that is.
It's online, and so we have women from all over the world, and we meet online via Zoom twice a week, and then they also get monthly one-on-one sessions with me. We have an online book club where we listen to different things, and so it is this community because I've coached people one-on-one and get results, and it's fun and it's fulfilling, but there's something about the group dynamic, especially now after everything that's gone on. I feel like a lot of us are so much more isolated than we've ever been, and we're social creatures. We need that interaction, especially as women, and especially as people who have something that not a lot of people can relate to. When you are in a group of people who get it, who know exactly what you're going through, that can be such a healing experience, that I really wanted to create that container that we could be completely open, honest, and then do the work together in order to feel better, improve our lives, et cetera, et cetera.
How many people are in the group?
Right now we have 5.
Which is, I guess, you don't want to have too
Perfect
many.
To start. Yes.
So that's very exciting. How long does the group then run, or is there a slot?
It's a 6-month program. And so I every 2 months I do a free online retreat, and it's called the Shift Yourself Retreat, because I had to bring in shift from the shift
I
cards.
love it. Right. Exactly.
Something about it. And it says exactly what the retreat is. So it worked out perfectly. So every 2 months I do a free online retreat called Shift Yourself. And that is for anyone who is interested in learning more about me, about what I teach, about how I teach, about how the group is set up. And you can come and you can get a ton of amazing, help and advice and information and support during that week. And you can head off that, but if you want to work further, then you can join the Canary Club, or you can work on with me one-on-one.
By the way, do yourself a favor. I don't think you put it there yet, but when you get a chance, sign up for I think I told you about the entertainment page. And I mentioned that because put in the seminar or the workshop every time you do it and promote it there. Plus, I also take the information there and put it in my blog. So I'd like to, promote it every 2 months whenever you're doing that. So if you would, just sign up for the entertainment page as well. So the seminar, then the Shift, again, great title, Shift Yourself Retreat. How long is that?
That's 1 week. The next one is coming up in November 8th, I believe. Yeah. And it's on, so you can either register at my website, which is emilyshaules.com, SHAULES, right. EMILI, or you can go to Facebook and search for the Shift Yourself group and join that way.
Okay, so a great way to find out more about some of the work you do. That's probably the best first step to take this Shift Yourself retreat.
Yes, absolutely. That's the place to go. We are building out my website as we speak. So it's every day it's getting bigger and better. But right now it's just the landing page for the retreat. So you can go there and learn all about the retreat. It's got tons of information, or you can just sign up at the Facebook group.
Okay. And kind of as we wind down here, Emily, let me ask you maybe for a listener who's, I guess, primarily suffering from we'll call it a invisible illness or whatever.
Yes.
Is there one bit of wisdom you have for folks who are dealing with this?
Oh, narrowing it down to one.
One tip.
Two,
if you like.
Yeah. Okay. One tip. We'll do kind of one emotional and one action. The emotional is be as gentle with yourself every single day as you would be a small child.
Explain that if you would.
I feel like most people, but especially those of us with invisible illnesses, are so hard on ourselves, are so self-critical, are judging ourselves for so many things. Plus the fact that why can't I work as hard as this person? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And to really turn inward and honor and love that little girl or boy inside of you, and say, look, I'm here for you. Like we're gonna be okay. But the judgment blocks the healing. So it's a huge thing. It's a complete shift in thinking. So that's why the program is 6 months. I mean, it takes a lot of time to kind of work through and redo a lot of this programming that we get growing up, but it's so key. And then the action step is meditate once a day. I don't care if it's 10 minutes, but calm your nervous system, give your mind a rest, and it works wonders.
Okay. And do you show them how to do that, or?
Absolutely. We go way into depth of meditation during the retreat and during the program.
So where do you see this going, Emily? So you've got this business off the ground, very exciting. What are your future plans?
I want to help as many women as I can through the group coaching program and other online programs we're creating. Definitely a book is in the works, and more speaking. I really want to speak up for those of us who have invisible illness, because I feel like we're just a group that a lot of people don't even think of, and yet there are millions, and it's impacting and costing us so much. There's nothing like the the power of the untapped woman. It could change the world. So
great. I'd like to thank you, Emily Shaules, for being my guest the second half hour on the Blaine's World Show. I'd also like to thank Scott Burnett for being my guest the first half hour. Amy Pierce-Nash, my producer. Look forward to having you join me next Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on WPVM and also on WPVM's Facebook page. So, Emily, I want to say goodbye to you officially, but stay on and we'll wrap up. Thanks for listening, folks.